the bunkai, the bunkai of kata, and the magic phrase, which is a phrase I coined a long time ago. A block is a lock, is a blow, is a throw. So what is a block, is a lock, is a blow, is a throw? What does it mean? It's really important that we think laterally when it comes to kata. You may be familiar, I've mentioned many, many times, my friend Nick Hughes. I'm putting a link here. Nick Hughes Crav. He does some great stuff. And when I woke up this morning, there was a message that Nick had done another Instagram post. We just had a quick look at it. It's great stuff. I always mention Nick in a couple of ways. First of all, whenever anyone says kata doesn't work, it doesn't, it's not real, it won't work in the street. Well, I'm sure with my incredibly limited experience, I would beg to differ. And Nick, who has had infinitely more experience, would also beg to differ. The thing that makes a difference, of course, is being able to translate it. So bunkai means to break it down, break it apart, and put it back together again. So last week we talked about toki to musubi no genni. So unraveling it, working it out, putting it back together. So please go and have a look at that link. I just sent that link to Nick Hughes's Instagram, and he's put up some great videos, and he shows you in how
no uncertain terms.
Yeah, no uncertain
He tells you what he really thinks.
Yeah, really. So anyway, bunkai, what does it mean? It means break it down. It means compartmentalize it. The verb bunkai suru means to break it down. It's commonly translated as applications. What you have to do is you have to take your kata to another level. Look, I understand, just as Itosu Sensei said, for some people, karate is nothing more than physical culture. It's exercise. Keep fit, keep strong, keep healthy. For others, though, you're taking your karate and using it as a fighting system. But what he did say is you have to be very clear which one it is. You can't have both. You have to decide which one it is. The reason is if you want to do kata just for the beauty and grace of the kata, that's 100% fine. Just don't think that it's going to translate into usable techniques. Is that a fair call?
Awesome. I ask you the questions. You ask me any questions.
I did pull out my book and I opened it at the page where we're talking about principles of kata training and also the supplementary guidelines of Miyagi Chojun. And let me just go through these. Every movement in every kata has significance and can be used in a real fight. Okay, so if the kata has this downward block, upward block, you really, it's up to you. The responsibility is for you to translate that into something usable. All right. Now, he also says there is no block. All right. And the word uke, we've spoken about it before many times. The word uke is probably a difficult word to translate from Japanese to English in a practical way. There's Japanese has numerous, the word uke, well, actually it's the verb ukeru means to receive. It means a lot of things though. It means all kinds of things. But to translate it into a martial arts environment makes a lot of sense to me why the original translators would have come up with the notion of it just calling it a block. Okay, but at the same time, you've got some strong blocks. A block is a realistic thing. It's just like the verb says, it's a way to receive. The block is determined by how you choose to receive it. Okay, so it can be a hard jolt. And this is what turns the block into a lock and a blow into a throw. It's how you choose to receive that block and use that block. Okay, this is from Miyagi Chojun, from my book, page 204. A closed hand returning to chamber usually has something in it. Okay, so instead of just pulling the hand back, it may be like this. I'll get Mitch to stand up.
I remember I asked you this at our beach training, the kata training that we did New Year's Day.
Oh, yes.
And I said,
yes.
I asked you this exact thing, and you demonstrated it to me.
Yeah, we were talking about Pinan 3, we chambering there like that. So he throws the punch, and I come here like this. First of all, this is uchiuke, but it can also be a really good elbow jolt. It doesn't. The notion that you can break someone's elbows like that, I think, is a little over the top. The reality is, things don't break so easy under pressure, but you get a nice jolt, which would allow you to continue on with something like an arm drag. Okay, so the notion here, and this is the first thing that came up, is this sort of thing here, and anything that returns to chamber to my body, I want to have something in it. Okay, so he throws the punch, boom, I need to get out of line, otherwise he's going to punch me with that one or headbutt me or whatever. So I have dominant airspace, but what I need to do is come to here. Okay, and then that hand becomes a nice whack. So that arm drag, as we know it, is a perfect example of the hand returning to chamber, like this in karate. There, like this, pull him in, and straight out of Saiha kata, the last movement out of Saiha, I come in here. Some people go straight under the neck like that. I don't necessarily like that because I feel sometimes from experience they have a couple of opportunities to escape. On the other hand, when I'm here, I go 1, 2, 3, and I can use that punch as well. Use that as a punch and then come in. I don't just simply go to the neck. I'm going to drive like a haito or a punch straight into the jawline, there like that. Or straight into the neck, there, like that. And then you get the finish there. So the comment that a closed fist returning to chamber has something in it. Well, in this example, the punch comes, the closed fist has his arm in it to allow you to continue on. So that's Pinan 3. I had no plan on doing that, but it works out that way. If you control an opponent's head, you can control the body. That works in every range, okay, especially inside. So we're in this situation here. It may be that even before he gets to throw the punch at me, I'm closing in, okay? Or he might just grab me. When he grabs me in some way, I can control the head here. And what I'm doing here is push-pull principle, another beautiful principle. I'm pulling the jawline, but I'm pushing the top of his head with my head. And what happens is my objective, depending whether is it a green light, an orange light, a red light. So it's a red light is this guy's trying to kill me, so I'm going to have to do something about it. A green light is he's my best mate who's drunk, who's just a little bit out of control, saying, hey, show us some of that karate stuff. Okay, so I'm here like this. I'm pushing with my head, and my objective is to fold his ear to his chest, okay, in this sort of motion. If I'm around the neck, I can't do that, okay? If I'm across the jawline, I can do that, there like this. One of the most pleasant memories I have, and I'm being facetious, sit down, is Jean LaBelle doing this to me, where he came across here and he folds my head to my chest, okay? The knee in the back, pulling back, and fold there like this. I'm trying not to do it too hard, but it really, see this? Look, fold the head, fold the head, fold the head. Good, like that. It's a horrible, horrible thing. You control the head, you control the body. That's a well-known principle, but very, very valid. Pay attention to the angles, okay? So in a kata, you don't get caught up in the embusen or the line of the kata, but the angle changes are really, really valuable. Most katas start to the side. It doesn't mean that someone's attacking you from the side. It means that someone's attacking you from the front, but you're going to change angles and get out of the line of fire. An angle change is in relation to the opponent before you, not a turn to face another opponent. This is from Miyagi Chojun. I'm not making this stuff up. Even Miyagi Chojun said that when you're in a situation, here is the situation. Why on earth would I be facing here if I know some guy's going to smash me from the side? Okay. So you're always dealing with this situation. Dominant head in there like that. And then when he attacks, I'm moving off to the side. Now I'm doing pin and 4, straight out of pin and 4 there. It's not because he attacked me from the side. It's because when he attacks me, I don't want to stay here and get beat up. So what I do is I just move off to the side there. Now you can hit with the forearm jolt again across the elbow to weaken. You can sweep. You can come in here. This is another thing that's really, really useful. I'm going to bury my head and snap there so you can dislocate the elbow and then drive in with a headbutt there. Okay, so this angle change is really, really important to recognize that I'm not defending. It's not like Mitch is coming in here and I'm blocking. It may well be we're right here and I'm moving off to the side. So the point that Miyagi Chojun makes is very, I mean, who's going to argue? It's in relation to the opponent before you, not a turn to face another opponent. I'm just reading it straight from the book, of course. Touching your own body in a kata indicates touching your opponent. Creating a connection between your body and the opponent's is a key way to leverage your power. If I'm, for example, again, pin and 3 here, touching my own body indicates that the technique comes as I'm touching someone else's body and I'm pulling in. Okay, headbutt in, pull there, across here, push down like that. Of course, it's all in this wonderful little book. If you haven't got a copy, why not? Contour the body. Strike hard to soft and soft to hard. What does that even mean? Okay, well, hard is bone. If you want to wreck your hand, punch someone on the bone. There's nothing wrong. If you've got conditioned hands, you can do all kinds of horrible stuff. Okay, but you want to hit to the soft part. There's nothing like a punch right in the neck like that. If you want to hit the bone, forearm, a slap, a tetsui, a back fist on the neck, the hard bone against the muscle. Okay, the body is all muscle, so the hardness of the fist, but also koken like that, which was one of Salso's favorites. Koken is quite hard. It doesn't fold. You can hurt. It's really easy to hurt your hands. Okay, and unless you're conditioned, and even when you're conditioned, sometimes the speed of the punch doesn't allow you to close the fist. I know we all talk about it, and this is one of the principles of karate: is stay relaxed till the point of contact, and then on the point you tighten up. It doesn't always go to plan. Okay, so that's why it's really important. But hit hard with soft. And Nick Hughes in his Instagram video today points out that it doesn't matter that carotid sinus slap on the neck or especially into the eardrum. There's no muscle. What he says is there is no muscle protecting the eardrum. So even if his words were, if you're a 110-pound girl hitting a 400-pound guy, it's still going to do damage. Okay, but I just find too, even when I'm grappling with guys and you're looking for that collar tie situation, we're in here, we're grappling, and I can come in and instead of just grabbing, I'll go this side so you can see, instead of just grabbing there like that, what you do is you come in, you whack it on like that, and it gives them a temporary dislocation of their senses.
It just gives you a different stimulus you weren't expecting.
Yes, that's right. It's so that hit hard with soft, soft with hard. That's probably one of the more commonly known ones. It's worth thinking about though. And there is no pause. Don't be confused by the timing of the kata zenbusen. Okay, so we might go 1, 2, 1, 2. But the point is, the reality is there is no pause. The flow is everything. The bunkai, there's another way to break down bunkai too. The word bunkai can also mean breaking down the flow of the technique. So it could be a kick, a grab, a movement. So you break it down, you work the kick, then you work the kick and the punch, then you work the kick and the grab, and then you put it all together and reconstruct it there. So bunkai doesn't just mean breaking down the technique for application. It can also mean to break it down so that you can actually master the flow of techniques. Okay. what I'm seeing is the use of opposites. The basic of Goju is not really the technique that matters, but the principles. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is what I'm trying to. Good point, Mike. These are really key points. Without, I'm just pulling Look, honestly, we didn't rehearse anything. I'm just pulling techniques out of my head. I'm trying to demonstrate these principles in movement. I think you're proving the point here. But good karate is good karate, regardless of the name. Yeah, exactly. And this is why I get a little dirty when people start to say this style's better or that style. It's just ridiculous. I mean, the reality is there are good and bad in every style, and a good guy in any style is always going to come to terms with how good someone in another style is. So, touch wood, I've had a really good run, and I've met a lot of people from a lot of different styles, and we've always been able to communicate because we communicate in terms of universal principles. When you have someone of very high skill, if you go, this is what they go, yeah, but what about this? Well, if you've got half a brain, you go, yeah, that's actually really, really valid. That's a good point. Works really well. I had a great day today. My first black belt student, Mark Sang, came around with his young son, Toby. Toby's about 6'3", and he has the build of everyone. And Mark made the point. He said, this new Meta, Facebook Meta, where you're going to put the 3D
the goggles on and live in the metaverse.
Yeah, you live in the metaverse and you create an avatar. Well, Toby his physicality is the avatar that we'll all want to create. But anyway, they just came around and did some training. It was great to see. But he pointed out too that one of the beautiful things that we had going in the old days of the dojo was people, because we were our central position in Brisbane, people would come in from all kinds of styles, and we were very open to it. And they'd come in, and if they were good, great. If they weren't good, great. We didn't care. But the point was, if they had something to offer, we would absorb it and use it to our advantage. I think that's the right attitude.
I think it sounds like you're saying also there's a lot more similarities between everything, but sometimes people get mixed up or caught up in the one little thing that's different, rather than so much of it is actually similar.
100%. That's what I've always said. Yes, I've always said there's always more similarities and differences. And the reality is you need to communicate with people through the similarities. It's only people that make division through the differences that realistically they cause a lot of the problems in the world. Being open to the potential of learning something outside our own system. And even within Cognition, the funny thing about Cognition is you'll have guys who are expert in certain areas, expert in other areas, and you can all come together, and it's like you're not even from the same style. You're from different dojos within the same style, and you can all learn from each other, and that's the beautiful thing about it. Let me just show you one combination, which it was this technique, which is the last technique out of Pinan 2, that made so much sense to me that I coined the phrase, a block is a lock is a blow is a throw. I know other people use it, and I hope he doesn't fall for the trap of plagiarization and avoiding quoting your source. And if you don't know the source, what do you say? You say, I don't know the source, but it's not mine. But anyway, it made me think about where I originally coined this phrase. And I think it was this particular technique, which I love so much, out of Pinan 2. So the technique is this. I'm here, I'm turning around, 1, 2, 3. So out of the last technique of Pinan 2, I'm here, 1, 2, 3 there. 1, 2, or 1, 2, depends, once again, in your interpretation. Am I blocking, striking into the eyes, or am I blocking and blocking? Block, block. There. Why would I finish a kata on 3 blocks? Doesn't really make sense. Well, one of the oldest street fighting tricks in the world is I kick him in the groin. As he blocks it, I punch him in the face. Guys do it all the time. So that's why, if you've got a little bit of experience in the street, you never block things with 2 hands. You always block things with 1, and you make sure the other hand stays up like that. The other thing too is, as he throws that punch, boom, it's always a good practice even in tournament fighting, if he throws a kick, always block. We learn block right with right, left with left. So I'm here, he throws a kick, I block it there. Even if he throws a head kick, and I'm sure Mitch still can, there. I block it, I keep my coxcomb strong, and I block it with my other hand. I never block it on the same side, because he throws a front kick, I block it, and he catches me in the head like that because my hand was down. Okay, so the movement out of pin and 2, 1, 2, 3. So I want to make sure that when the kick comes, and because he's throwing that leg, I'm going to throw this side. Okay, and he sucks me in, he kicks me in the groin, boom, crack. Okay, so what I need to do is, as I block that kick, my coxcomb is, and my hand comes back up again to reconnect my hand straight out of kunku. Okay, so I'm there, boom, then I move in. Once again, the old saying, 1 foot in front of the blade, you're in hell, 2 foot forward, and I'm in heaven again. So I want to get inside the length of that punch. I don't want to hang around here in front of the punch. I want to move forward here like this. So the kick comes, block, punch. Okay? Now, this is a block. It can also be a forearm jolt to the chest or the jaw. So the upper block then becomes a blow. Okay? Now we turn it into a lock. Okay, so now I'm going to use my head, not just figuratively, I mean actually physically, because I need to keep that arm up. And if he withdraws the hand, I need to follow it. So he throws the kick, throws the punch, and I follow it in. See, like this, then there's the lock. So notice I'm not necessarily using my hand to grip because that slips. I'm actually, if you can see, I'm locking everything in here. It's locked in. I've seen this technique demonstrated, kick comes, hand comes. I've seen this technique demonstrated on this side, which is like an Americana on the ground. On the ground, it works really well. Stand up, I find it doesn't work so well. So when I try to take Mitch down, and if he doesn't want to go down, it's really easy to get out of. But when I do it with the correct hand, so his right against my right, and I use my right, when I fold it in here, and I use my chest to lock it in, so that upper block becomes the lock. Okay, so now when Mitch tries to get out, it's really, the more he pushes, the more it makes it like that. Sorry, Mitch, I didn't mean to give you a black eye there. It's good looking guys. I always end up black eye. 1. Okay, so I want to come in here and I whack that down and I lock it in. And I just keep moving like that. Elbow, elbow, elbow is the blow and the throw. So that's the technique, the original technique. When I was working with that gave me the opportunity or the idea of creating that phrase, a block is a lock, is a blow, is a throw. All right? The phrase is original. The concept is not. That is a universal concept. I just happen to put it more poetically, I guess, because it helps the student to remember.
I remember a story you said once when I think you were training for your knee done at Honbu and you were doing bunkai with someone and I don't know, there's a discussion and you said, could it be? And they said, no, it's this. And that was that one of the earlier seeds of you thinking, hang on, it could be a lot of things? Or
Yes, he's a good friend of mine and we were both preparing for our second Dan and I was talking about bunkai. He said, what do you want to know that for? You don't need to know that for the kata. I said, well, yeah, but I'm thinking, can't this also be that? And he goes, no, it's this. I said, yeah, but can't it also be that? He goes, no, it's this. But that brings me to another point. You see here in my book, see that kanji? That's a calligraphy that I did for the book. And that in Japanese says, Junin toiro. Junin, 10 people, toiro, 10 colors. Okay, so basically what that tells us is exactly what Mitch is saying. In my friend's head, there was a set way to do the bunkai. I had a different approach. Someone else has a different approach. My friend Nick Hughes has a completely different approach. The principles are universal. I guarantee that anything that he is doing obeys fundamental principle rules. The fact that he is doing it in a different way is Junin Toiro, 10 people, 10 colors. All it means is 10 different people can have 10 different interpretations of the same thing. And you can't say that one is wrong and one is right. They're all, like Michelle there says, yeah, lots of variations. So you can take the different variations and you can think, yeah, does that suit me or not? Maybe you'll learn 10 different applications and 2 of them work really, really well for you. Okay. So that's a good point. Junin Toiro just happened to be on the same page. I'm reading from over here, but the Junin Toiro calligraphy, I think, is really valid. And Solsai, once I remember in an interview in 1992, he was asked the question, what is Kyokushin Karate? And Solsai said, there is no Kyokushin Karate. And the guy thought, well, what do you mean? He said, there's Oyama Karate, there's Cameron Karate, there's Mitch Karate, there's Michelle Karate. There's everybody works on the principles and fundamentals, and then they create their own karate for their own gender, age, size, somatic gifts, etc. All right, and that's why you should never dismiss anyone or anything, because it may well be that what they do, you will never do, but it works really well for them. Okay, so I mean, it's always good to have Mitch here because of his somatic training and athletic development training. Can you see a crossover between doing the formal kata and actually making them work?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
What from your as an athletic conditioning coach training, how do you see that?
I probably see a bit different to most, because if a physical prep coach doesn't have a martial arts background, I can see how they could easily get sucked into thinking the kata is kind of like dance, blah, blah, blah. I can see that. I can understand it. But for me, because I do have a martial arts background, I think it has a massive connection just from learning kata, from agility, coordination, balance, and what's also talked about, the 3 steps, the points of stress, the breathing, and the tempo and the speed of movement alone to work on those things as well. Also, memory and cognition is a huge thing. As an athlete, you've got to remember plays. You've got to remember combinations if we're talking about combat sports as an example. So the ability to retain that cognitively and drill it. And then also
drilling is important, isn't it? Because then it goes from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. Yeah, and that's where the bunkai, the second interpretation that I have anyway, bunkai, where you actually break down a flow of techniques to master the individual parts. Mike Clark, given that in a fight we never know what the question attack is, it seems unlikely the prepared answer is going to be useful, 100%. And like one of my wrestling coaches, Rico Ciparelli, said, you can practice a technique perfectly 1,000,000 times, and if you pull it off once perfectly in competition, you've done really, really well. Because even a slight angle change and a slight weight difference and a slight distance difference will change the outcome.
And that, I guess, is a reason for drilling so much.
Yes.
That we focus on so much is just drilling.
Yeah, because you have to be able to respond to the slight changes as they happen. That's a really good point. And that's why it's important to teach more than one too. Yeah, look, you start off with a fundamental defensive response to a technique, and then you build from there. I think that's important. Xian, what was Solsai's favorite bunkai, kata, and why? Well, I think probably you could argue that his favorite kata was Tensho. Now, within bunkai, of course, you have all these techniques. You take the one hand and you add the 2 hands and you add the counters. But the big thing that I find that Solsai, I always talk about Solsai's interpretation of Koken when he says, put the thumb at the ring finger on the way up, the thumb at the middle finger on the way across. I know that Solsai was a big fan of Koken, one, because nothing gave. when you hit someone with the cock end, there's no giving. You hit someone with a fist, you got movement, and if your fist isn't quite perfectly tight, you got problems. But Solsai used to use that cock end up here like this, across there like this, across there, around. There's all kinds of ways you can use cock end. So definitely, Paddy, Tensho was his favorite kata, but when people think Tensho, they think the Tensho movement, but they forget the fact that you've got palm heels and coming back. So this movement here, one, in there like that, works a dream, and that was one of Solsai's big moves. Kata apparently called styles back in the day. Each kata is self-contained, especially counter da. Look, 100% right. Whole systems were built on a single kata, and in fact, they still are today. There are some systems where they only have one kata. You look at the Bagua. The Bagua is a single circular kata, and the whole system, a lifetime of training, is one kata.
Wow.
In the old days, even like that comment says, is 100% correct. In the old days, most, even in Okinawa, many of the styles were recognized simply by the repetition of one kata. And in China, that's very common as well, which is a really strong point to argue why do we have so many kata. There's too many, I think. Marco, I know this may be a long bow to draw. I work in electronics. Once you understand the underlying principle of electronic theory, yeah. And we work on the idea of, there you go, Motobu Ryu only has no hanchin. And if you're going to have one kata, that's a beauty to have. I know that when we talk about sweeps, so what is a sweep? On the ground, a sweep is where I'm in trouble, I'm on my back, and I'm going to reverse him and end up on top. Okay? So in relation to what Marco says there, if you can, and this isn't original to me, this is I learned from someone who taught me, and I don't even know if it's his originally, but the point is the principle is solid. But that's a perfect point. Yeah, that's the kata were predominantly one kata, one style. Made sense. And the whole kata itself was from start to finish, a complete system in itself. So when you're talking about sweeps, all right, sweeps have 3 fundamental principles. Kill the post, feel the weight, turn the circle. Now, if you work on that principle, kill the post, feel the weight, turn the circle, you can sweep anyone from anywhere. All right? Let me just show you. This is just for the grapplers in the world. Okay, so let me see if we can demonstrate this principle. If I want to sweep Mitch, I want to try and alleviate my underneath position. Grappling is great underneath, but the old argument that street fights end up on the ground, I disagree with completely. The only time a street fight in my world ever ended up on the ground is when I slipped and fell over, not because it ever wanted to go to the ground. Masayama says there is groundwork, there is grappling on the ground, but the objective of karate's grappling is to get back up off the ground and finish. So if I'm underneath here and I don't know how to deal with this, I'm in trouble. But here we are, okay? My principle is if I sweep him like this, 1, he posts, 2, I don't have control of his weight. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get close and kill that post. Then what I'm going to do is connect his body to mine so that as I go back, there's a tipping point. Okay, it's not there, it's not there, it's not there, it's not there. There it is. Okay, and then all I do is I take him over here. Feel the tipping point there? So that's a principle of movement. Kill the post, feel the weight, turn the circle. Well, let's look at another way that I could be in a little bit of trouble here. He's trying to punch my lights out. I'm using my knees to hold him at bay, and then 1. First thing I do is by collapsing my knee, I've actually tied up his post, and I feel the weight, and I let the weight come towards me, and notice his foot. Sometimes I'll even put it on the thigh there. So as he comes in, no, there it is. Back. So, and then I finish up in the dominant position. So that concept of actually using the principle as opposed to techniques, it's the concept of teaching a man how to fish as opposed to giving him a fish. Okay.
A lot of stuff we do in training when I get to train with you is principles. You're always talking about principles and creating acronyms and sayings to don't worry about that actual thing, focus on this kind of thing, to get the line of thinking all the time. That's a big thing.
Very important, I think, so don't get caught up with technique and push out the importance of the principle behind the technique. Well, I think actually if Solsai had his way, he would have reduced it to even more. I think 30 kata is way too much. I even think 20 kata is too much, because if you want to really seriously take a kata to any depth, you're not going to do it 20 kata. You might. So one of Solsai's temporaries, Takeda Shokan Sensei, he's a 10th dan. He once said to me that you should only ever be really working on 2 kata at a time. He said you work on the kata that is your kata. So you take one of those kata and you make it your own. Junin, Tohiro, 10 people, 10 colors. He said, and the other kata you're working on is the kata that you're learning at the moment. He said, if you're trying to learn doing any more than that, it's too much. So I think if Solsai had his way, Christopher, I wouldn't be surprised if over time he would have continued to reduce it even more. But he himself was, and it's like Xian Bobby Lo, they themselves, whilst they taught all the kata, they predominantly went back to Sanshin and Tensho, 2 kata. No worries. Look, Ken, good to see you. But everyone, look, that's our fundamental. A block is a lock, is a blow, is a throw. What does it mean? It means think laterally. It means open up. Remember, refer to page 204 in a book where it talks about the Hosoku Joko, supplementary guidelines. Okay, from Miyagi Chojun, there are those 9 points. Really very, very valuable, because that will force you to think outside the square. If you're stuck in, you've got to break out. You have to, if you have a good instructor, he'll encourage that. Yes, and see, like Jed says, dig a narrow hole and go deep. Inch wide, mile deep. Very true. It's not about taking your range of techniques wider and wider. It's about taking the techniques that you have deeper and deeper. Like Bruce Lee says, don't fear the man who knows 10,000 kicks. Fear the one who's done one kick 10,000 times.
But as an example, like your push-pull principle,
yes,
that's probably, I don't know the Gracie principles, but just as an example, it might be used 4 times within those principles, if that makes sense. Like you could, how you said, go an inch wide and a mile deep, the push-pull might be something you could knock off 5 principles, because it's really just a push-pull in different, I don't know, I'm just as an example. Yeah,
well, and also you have principles that make other principles work.
Of course. A
certain principle may actually be a combination of 1 or 2 other principles. But yeah, look, there's no end of principles. The point of the principle is it's just you're teaching someone how to fish as opposed to giving them a fish. You teach a technique. Yeah, check this technique out. Here's a good technique. Look, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to bury my hand. I'm going to get the hand over here. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to choke. You go, oh, that's a good technique. And then he goes home and tries it and he can't make it work, because you've taught a technique without the principles. So the principle is, I need to get high. I need to think, what's the principle here? I'm trying to create a smaller and smaller space for that neck to come through, using his collar as like John Danaher calls it, like a length of rope. Okay, so I'm going to get my hand right back here. And then I can come here. Okay, dig in. Strong fists. Now, if I just do it here, maybe I get the choke. Okay, but more to the point is, the principle of push-pull is, right now I'm pulling, 2 arms pulling. I want to go push-pull. So push-pull now, I'm going to change angles, and this bottom arm is like gedan bara, retracting the hand in karate. Boom, boom, gedan bara. Okay, so now I come in here, hit his head, whack his head, drop his head, and now what I'm doing is I'm push-pulling. There like that, and the technique comes on much stronger. And I can also cross-face him with my forearm. So that's the push. This arm is the pull. There like that. So the pressure is a multiple.
So different.
Yeah. So that's what I mean by push-pull. If you're ever doing any technique and you're doing a pull-pull or a push-push, ask yourself, if I change angle, do a push-pull, will it change it? Definitely will. Thank you, everyone. I hope you got something out of that. As always, it's great to have Mitch come
I
along.
thank you, Shian.
Awes, good on you. Thank you for coming along, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got something out of it. Remember, a block is a lock, is a blow, is a throw. Good on you. Thank you very much. And Mike Clark, it's always a privilege and an honor to have you along as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mitch.
Awesome.
Look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing you next week. Awes.